again, this is Watukobesa, and we will be looking at the issue, at how you play against two bishops, because obviously the other videos I looked at the advantage of the two bishops and how you what you go for, trying to open up the position in the center and so on. So, but it's important to realize that it doesn't necessarily mean that when you have two bishops you have a winning advantage, because the opponent can be able to neutralize the two bishops. The way to neutralize the two bishops is to have an outpost for one of the knights. Now, the best outpost, remember we said an outpost is if you're having the white pieces anywhere on the 4th rank. If you're having the black pieces, you want to put your knight anywhere on the 5th rank. But the best outpost is a centralized one in front of an isolated pawn. So, example, if white has a pawn on d4, and then which is isolated, and two bishops, black will strive to put a knight on d5. And since this knight on d5 will be on a white square, and the d4 pawn, the pawn on d4 will be on a black square, it means that the black squared bishop will be slightly worse. Then, black is able to fight against the two bishops using this method. So to illustrate this, we're going to look at one game that was played by Anatoly Karpov. Karpov was black here. He was playing against Lajos Portish from Hungary. So Lajos Portish, when this game was played, he was a very strong player. Rating was 2630, and Karpov was 2725. So it was played in 1978, and let us get into the game and see what happened. Okay, so d4, knight of 6, c4, e6, knight c3, bishop b4. So it's a Nimzo Indian. Yeah, Karpov's favorite opening against d4. e3, castles, bishop d3. Now the opening, the early opening has been completed. That means that black has castled. Now remember we talked about this idea immediately after castling. You go for attacking the opponent's strongest pawn. So two of the opponent's pawns here are strong. Obviously, the strongest one is the one on d4. The one on c4 is also quite strong because it attacks the center. So somehow black must try to put pressure on these pawns. Karpov plays immediately c5, attacking d4, knight f3, d5. There are many lines that black can play here, but Karpov used to like to play this variation with an early c5 and d5 and then trading off in the center. So much so that it's actually called the Karpov variation of the Nimzo Indian. So Portish castles and Karpov plays d takes c4, bishop takes c4, c takes d4, e takes d4, and plays the move b6. So yeah, the position has clarified somehow. White has got an isolated pawn on d4. And black, will play bishop b7, but white has got some space. So white is obviously still better in this position. You will see another Karpov game, and it is interesting that you can reach the same position via Caro-Kann defense. Yeah, Caro-Kann Botvinnik variation, e4, c6, d4, d5, e takes d5, c3, d5, c4, like that. But yeah, okay. So Portish plays on move 10, bishop g5, normal developing move. Bishop b7, rook e1, centralizing all these pieces, knight b d7, rook c1, and Karpov plays here rook c8, bishop d3, and immediately exchanges the bishop for the knight. Now, normally we would sort of frown upon this idea and say, well, the center is relatively open. Why would black give the opponent the two bishops? And well, Karpov's idea, obviously, after b takes c3, is that he immediately has some pressure, first of all on the pawn on c3, and the pawn on a2 is also isolated. So yeah, in an endgame, black would be doing well. But for now, white has got the two bishops, and white has got some very active position. So one of black's main ideas here is to cover the black squares. Because if you think about it, because black does not have the black squared bishop, if you look at black's black squares here, e7, d6, and c7, they are quite weak because that bishop is not there. So obviously, one of black's ideas will be to move the queen along that diagonal. You know, the queen must go to d6 somehow, sometimes to a3 if it's disturbed on d6, and then just stay on this diagonal and keep the black squares under cover, and also attack the pawn on a2 and the pawn on c3. So for this purpose, Karpov plays queen c7. We understand that here now, after queen c7, in some positions he might play queen d6. Portish plays c4. He doesn't wish that his pawn is on c3, because it means then if the pawn stays on c3, that his rook can never be active. So he plays c4. And Karpov now has to make a plan. Now this is a very interesting position, because Karpov immediately makes the plan to have an outpost for his for one of his knights. So if you look at this position, there are two ways that black can plan for an outpost. The one is to try and play you know, the move e5. Okay, one is to try and play the move e5 in the right with right timing, so that once the pawn moves away from d4, the knight is then able to go to the square c5. Okay, that's one plan. The other plan, of course, involves the move b5. And the idea here is that, you know, once the c pawn moves, then the knight will be able to get to that square d5. So yeah, these are the two plans that are available for black, but it depends now on the position of the pieces and which plan he can play. He plays rook f e8, so he's trying to go for this advanced e5. So queen e2, h6, and after bishop d2, he plays a surprising move. Bishop takes f3. Look at this. He's given Portish two bishops, but he is confident about his position based on the fact that the knights, one of the knights is going to get an outpost. So after queen takes, now we see the move e5. It's a very nice move, very nice concept. Okay, from here on, Portish tried to play very aggressively, but if he plays, let's say, a move like d5, which he did not play, you know, Karpov can play, let's say, knight c5, and after bishop b1, maybe even the move e4 might be playable. And we see that, you know, black has got a very comfortable position. And, you know, this is based on the fact that the knight on c5 is very strong, and at the same time, the bishop on b1 is not so strong, because if we look at the two pawns, the pawn on d5 and the pawn on c4, they are blocking this bishop. So that is the whole concept that we are discussing. How to play against the two bishops will be, you know, to create an outpost for the knight. So after e5, yeah, Portish tried queen g3. It did not work out nicely. It took Karpov, rook takes, knight takes. Yeah, maybe against any other strong grandmaster, this might have been enough, but, you know, Karpov, it's too little for someone with Karpov's defensive skills. He tries bishop f4, queen c6, so he's slowly going to move his pieces to the king side to defend. Obviously, this protects h6. Bishop f5 tries to get a pin on f5 to see, you know, the h3 to c8 diagonal, rook c8, gets out of the pin, knight c5. Now we see that knight is on a very nice square. Now it's even worse, because the knight on c5 supports this d pawn. The d pawn is at some point going to make its way to d1, trying to be a queen. So the game is actually over. Karpov must just manage the tactics here and not allow the opponent to swindle him, so to speak. Queen e6, king f8, very good move. Is getting out of the pattern, which is the pin. Bishop e5, he takes the other pawn. It's already lost. Knight e6, queen d5, controlling the center. And we see very quickly that all his pieces are just centralized, and actually Portish cannot do much. He's lost all his pawns without any compensation. A very nice game by Karpov, and here Portish resigned. So the game was about deciding when to give the opponent the two bishops and what to play against, and having a plan to play against the two bishops. And here the plan was the creation of counterplay based on having an outpost for the knight in that position. Right. So the next game we're going to look at is another Karpov game. He played here against Boris Gelfand. This game was played in 1994 in Linares. And it's still the concept of how to play against the two bishops. But here, this game, more than anything, I wanted to show you, because the Portish game, Portish Karpov, it was about the creation of an outpost on c5, where Karpov had played for the move e5 against the pawns on d4 and c4. So here, this game I like because Karpov strives to create an outpost on d5 by playing the move b5. So we just are going to look at this game. Although the game in itself never really becomes about, purely two bishops. But somehow the concepts are there, but mainly I just want to show you a Karpov game where he is now not playing the move e5 but plays the move b5. Okay, let's get into the game. This time you will notice that Gelfand played e4 and Karpov played the Caro-Kann, c6, d4, d5, c4, knight f6, knight c3, e6. This is the so-called Botvinnik-Panov variation of against the Caro-Kann, very aggressive variation. Knight f3, bishop b4, bishop d3, takes, bishop takes, castles, castles, b6. So by transposition, we reach the same position that we had reached with Portish against Karpov. This time he plays Gelfand in 1994 and still reaches the same position, although it was via e4. Okay, bishop g5, bishop b7, rook e1, bishop takes c3, knight d7, bishop d3, queen c7, rook c1, and this time Karpov decides to play the move queen d6. Yeah, we had talked about this idea in the Portish game, which is, based on the fact that black is slightly weak on the black squares because black doesn't have a black squared bishop. So it's very natural for the queen to go to d6, and sometimes this queen can go all the way to a3 just to have control of these black squares. Okay, Gelfand plays bishop h4. The idea of bishop h4 is to play bishop g3, attacking the queen and taking control of the black squares. Okay, rook c8 he plays. So now, obviously, by playing rook fc8, he signals that he's not going to be playing for e5, of course. But this time, e5 would have been very difficult to carry out anyway, because white's bishop is going to go to g3, and he's going to have a lot of control of the square e5. Now, after bishop g3, Karpov plays queen a3. So the idea is not to take the pawn on a2, because it would be too dangerous. The queen would be sort of too far away, from the rest of the army. Thus, queen a3 is to hold the position together and to put pressure on c3 and to hold the black squares. So Gelfand plays the move c4. Obviously, we said whenever a pawn is pushed or whenever there's an exchange, we need to reassess the position, because the position changes ever so slightly. And after c4, we obviously see that both pawns are actually potentially weak. These pawns are the so-called hanging pawns. Yeah, and hanging pawns, though, also have this ability to be very dynamic, because they can push to d5, they can push to c5, and so on and so on, and they take space in the center. So Karpov plays knight f8. So he's clearing the d file. His knight is going to go to g6, and in some positions, his rook might go to d8 to attack the pawn on d4. Knight e5, normal move, knight g6, and rook e3. Very nice move by Gelfand. So he's starting to play aggressively. He's threatening to move the bishop. For example, bishop takes knight, and a discover attack on the queen on a3. So Karpov obviously stays on this diagonal, queen f8. And now he plays f4. The game is becoming quite sharp. Of course, Gelfand is an extremely strong positional player, and he understands that he's pushing pawns and he's making some weaknesses, but he's playing dynamically. There are chances that he might play the move f5, but okay, there are weaknesses, of course, in his position, and Karpov plays queen d8, attacking the pawn on d4, bishop b1, and now the knight goes to e7. Now notice that the knight on e7 could move to f5, and in some cases could move to g6 as well. But more importantly, he doesn't want to allow Gelfand to play the move f5 with a tempo, because f5, if he takes, bishop takes f5, and all the pieces are slowly getting toward to his king. So knight e7, bishop h4 back to knight g6. And Gelfand plays bishop g5. Gelfand is very confident about his position, because obviously he could have played bishop g3, and he would have been proposing a draw, so to speak, because then if Karpov plays knight e7 again, then he can go back bishop h4. But he shows confidence in his position by playing the move bishop g5. He wants to maintain the pin. And why not? Because it's difficult for Karpov to play the move h6. So now Karpov finds a nice way to create space for his pieces. The two bishops are becoming quite a nuisance. They are both hitting the center. The black squared bishop is putting pressure on the pin. He plays the move b5, a very, very strong move. Immediately, he's trying now to fight for counterplay. And what he wants with b5 is that he wants to have the square d5 for his knight. You see? So if white plays a move like c5, he's got d5 available for his knight. And he could play, okay, c5 would be very dangerous here for white to play, because obviously if a move like c5 would not be so strong, probably Karpov could play queen d5, threatening mate. And for now the queen is nicely centralized, but later on this square, the knight can jump in, rook can go to d8. Yeah, here he would get some nice counterplay. So c5 would not be a good move. Of course, Gelfand decides to change the character of the position. He plays bishop takes g6, h takes g6, and now he plays rook h3. The threat is to play rook h8 check. King takes h8 and knight takes f7 check, and takes the queen. So Karpov plays rook c7, of course, defending against this. Now, if Gelfand does nothing, Karpov will take on c4. And as we talked about the situation previously, create d5 as an outpost for his pieces and his knight especially. So Gelfand plays the move d5, a fantastic positional sacrifice, because he doesn't want black to have access to the square d5. Karpov takes on d5, and now he plays the move c5. It's a very nice idea. Of course, if Karpov does nothing, maybe he can play blockade, maybe on d4, and yeah, if queen is on d4, maybe to be threatening things like f5, queen h4, mate threats. It could get very dangerous. So Karpov decides that he's going to defend his king side also. So bishop c8, ready to swing his bishop to the king side. Rook b3, queen e8. And again, he's found a way to defend the position nicely. From here on, somehow Gelfand didn't find a way to get the initiative. And here, after these moves, obviously, black is better now. Bishop on e4 is very strong, and f5, and we see now that black is a pawn up, and black should win, and Karpov did continue winning the game. The game is not too interesting for us now. I'm gonna quickly move, the move to show you how the game ended. But more importantly for us was that idea of counterplay and the creation of an outpost in the center to play against the two bishops. Yeah. So okay, c6, queen b4, and the pawns were pushed. Takes on f4, and already black has invaded white's position, and it's clear that Gelfand is losing this position. So a very nicely designed here, a very nicely played game by Karpov, showing a lot of class in handling positions where he's under pressure, and just with simple moves using principles, being able to defend a difficult position.